The media show this week is presented by Andrea Catherwood.
From national news to the smallest TV stations in the country, are local TV companies really serving their own communities, as they were set up to do just a few years ago?
This is Sky News at 6.
If you are a loyal watcher of nightly television news bulletins, the chances are you're over 55. You might not be surprised that younger people watch less traditional news, growing up in a digital environment. But if I told you that the average 18 to 24-year-old watches 25 hours of TV news a year, you might begin to understand why television news is wondering where it's going to find its audience in the future, and indeed, does it even have a future? Well, Richard Sambrook has just co-written a Reuters Institute report called The Digital News Project 2016. Ben de Pere is editor of Channel 4 News, and John McAndrew is executive editor at Sky News, and they're all with me in the studio, so welcome. Richard, if I could start with you, young people's media habits have always differed from older people. I mean, traditionally they settle down, they get into a routine, they might have kids and start watching TV news every night or more regularly. It's a pattern we've seen since television has started. Why is it so different this time round?
Well, I think TV viewing generally and TV news viewing in particular is seeing a greater erosion of raw figures of people watching, an ageing audience, and overall people spending less time watching TV, and that's particularly true of the younger audience. And the question is, some people take comfort, and as you suggested, perhaps they'll settle down and all sit on the sofa and watch TV. But actually, I think with the advent of mobile devices and the online and digital environment, there's a kind of structural shift in the way people consume media, and I think there's no reason to suppose that that's going to change. If anything, there's evidence to say that change in consumption pattern is moving up the age range, and older people are adopting the habits of the younger generation rather than the other way around.
I wonder how much we're really doing about it, because when I was newscasting at ITV 10 or 15 years ago, we were talking then regularly about how to increase our online presence, how to post more video online. Now, when you look in the intervening years at how drama and entertainment has had such a seismic shift with Netflix and Amazon Prime, there hasn't been any equivalent to that in news, has there? I mean, it hasn't transformed over the past decade.
Well, I think that's one of the really important points. I mean, in some ways, television is going through a great renaissance in the digital environment with, as you say, the streaming services and the over-the-top players like iPlayer and other players and so on as well. But news hasn't fared as well in that environment as drama or sport or entertainment. Equally, when you go online into the kind of social media environment as well, entertainment and other kinds of clips and videos seem to be doing better than news is doing. And I think there are a lot of deep challenges for news broadcasters in particular as they start to try and work out how they maintain and build an audience in an online environment.
Ben, deep challenges. How's Channel 4 News trying to handle that?
Well, I mean, I think we've bucked the trend, actually. We had an average audience in 2014 of 607,000 a night, which is still pretty big, but we're now on 630,000. So our audience share and the real audience has actually gone up in the last 2 years by 4% a year, and the share by 6%. And we don't know exactly why that is, but what we did do is we had a look at what our demographic was. We have a large young viewership between 16 and 34, and we've also got a very big BAME audience, black and ethnic minority audience. And we started reacting to the audience, i.e. giving them stories and showing them on the TV programme. And I think that may have been part of the reason that our audience share has gone up and the real audience has gone up. I mean, obviously the Channel 4 is doing better in the last couple of years.
So you would argue that if you get it right, you don't need to worry, and that terrestrial TV can thrive in this environment, terrestrial news bulletins.
Alongside that, we, in the last year and a half, have looked at our digital offering quite closely. And we were getting about 4 million digital views in January 2014. In February this year, we got 128 million views of our not of our news programme, but of us cutting it up in a different way, primarily on Facebook, I have to say, which is a challenge in itself, because if it ought to be in one platform is a big question for broadcasters, I think. But I think we haven't gone away from a serious agenda. We haven't gone away from the remit of the programme, but we've cut things and edited them and delivered them in a different way than we have ever done before, and it's had amazing results for us actually online. And I wonder whether that digital growth has affected those who actually watch the TV news programme.
Richard, ITV News, who I should say we did ask to come on today, but they weren't available. You give an example of the ITV weekday evening news in your report, saying that it had ratings of 3.4 million in 2010, and that had fallen to around 2 million at the end of last year. I have to say I did have a look before we came on air, and they seem to have gone up a bit since then. But that is a very traditional evening news bulletin. Is this the kind you think is most at risk?
Well, I think evening bulletins are going to be with us for a long time to come, but the audience is going to continue to decrease. I mean, I'm delighted for Channel 4 and for Ben. They've got a very differentiated product, and that helps. But looking across a number of developed markets, this isn't just a study about the UK, it's about a lot of developed markets. The average over the last 4 years is a 3 or 4% decrease year on year, which if you compound it over a decade is going to mean they're going to lose nearly a third of the audience. So this isn't just about UK, this is about developed markets in Europe and so on, and there is a definite trend in terms of the erosion of those audiences. I think innovating online in the way that Ben's been talked about is absolutely vital, but there is a big problem about going into social media networks like Facebook, which is you cede all control over your distribution. Facebook controls who sees what, where, when and how, and the broadcaster doesn't have any control, and that is a very big strategic issue.
John McAndrew, the report highlights that viewers of 24-hour news are getting older and older. The average age at Fox in the US is 67, which I was quite surprised to read. What do you do to appeal to a younger audience?
Well, our audiences are like Ben's, are going up year on year, but we're a rolling channel, so we've got more opportunity to experiment and innovate. And sometimes our audiences are going to be based on the big breaking news story happening, and they give us sort of tremendous spikes, and then it will even out. What we've got to do to appeal to a new demographic is, and what we've done is restructure the whole operation at Sky, which was essentially a 24-hour news channel only with a small web offering on the side, to something that's got digital right at the heart of it. So over the last 18 months, we've taken production and news gathering resource really away from the rolling daytime coverage, which has been replaced by more opinion, debate and discussion, and built up a larger mobile team, which has seen our audiences on mobile devices go up by about 24% every year. So, as Richard's report says, the thing to do is recognise the trends and act on them. But importantly, at the heart of that is the journalism has still got to be brilliant. And you can't it's not a case of just sort of taking what we've got coming in on a rolling channel and slapping it up on Facebook or on anywhere else or online. The journalism and the specialism has to be excellent.
Well, we haven't found the kind of magic bullet for news the way perhaps Netflix and Amazon Prime have taken entertainment by storm. That hasn't happened yet, Richard.
No, it hasn't. And what this report says is we're seeing lots of innovation and experimentation, but there's no kind of recipe that's actually been identified yet. And we're lucky in the UK. I think all of the news broadcasters here are innovating and trying lots of different things. But as yet, it's not clear, exactly what's really going to work. And crucially, picking up on what John's just said, I think for public interest broadcasters, public service broadcasters, which includes all of the UK news broadcasters because they're regulated to be public service news broadcasters. What's that look like on a mobile screen, or what does it look like in a silent video clip automatically playing on Facebook? How does that deliver public value in a way that they're going to have to compete against all of the entertainment and the other distractions that are available?
John, Richard's report makes quite clear that TV news needs to experiment and find formulas that will appeal. And you've got a new programme that's coming up, and I'm going to quote for your press release. It says that it's unlike anything else on British TV. It's a programme it's a programme of rotating commentators debating the issues of the day. But it's replacing news headlines. So what's the thinking there?
Well, because as we've just discussed, people by the evening can often get their, know what the news headlines are, and you need to give them more. Now, during the daytime, as I've said, in order to shift our news gathering resources to parts of the time when we have a big TV audience rather than the rolling coverage in the daytime, which is more steady, unless there is a breaking story, we've introduced lots of debate and discussion. It's done very well for us, so the numbers across the day are going up because people like to see that debate and discussion, and we have the luxury of a lot of airtime, so we can give it to that. And we
What happens when there's a big breaking story?
Well, depending on the magnitude of the story, we come out of it. I mean, at Sky News, our promise is always that we will be there for the big breaking story, come what may. So it's not particularly hard to come out of a built programme should we need to, and we've demonstrated that through the years, really. So that's not really the issue. The issue is, can we do something new and innovative that gives people some more opinion, some more debate, and something to engage them when they might have well got all their news headlines on their phone on the way home. So the idea of it is that we have no presenter. We have our rotating panel of presenters who are not Sky News faces, who all have a great deal to say.
Sounds a bit like Loose Women for News.
Loose Women for News. Well, I'm sure they'd love to hear that. It's actually, I mean, the kind of characters we've got, from sort of Greg Dyke to Rachel Johnson to June Sarpong, Graham Lasso. These are people who are really sort of high achievers and got specialisms and special interests that I think our viewers will be really interested in. They're a very diverse group of people. They've got a diverse group of things to talk about.
No, I also noticed that they've all got quite high social media sort of profiles.
Yeah.
How important is that for you?
Their social media profile.
Yeah.
Well, it's not why we chose them. I mean, we went through a variety of formats, and we auditioned or piloted an awful lot of people, probably 4 times as many as we've ended up with. And their social media profile wasn't really a reason for anyone to be chosen. It was more for what they had to say, the subjects, the range they would cover, and the chemistry with the other presenters.
Ben, we were talking about the kind of current battle being for mobile, for video. How much does Channel 4 News actually change its news gathering operation to make sure that video that you're giving to your viewers and on Facebook is actually at the centre of what you do?
During the day, everything used to be pointed towards the 7 o'clock bulletin. Obviously, when you talk about social media driving things, we've got Jon Snow and a bunch of really passionate journalists at Channel 4 News who drive things on Twitter or on social media all day. But we realised that we needed to put in another deadline during the day, which is kind of 3 o'clock or even earlier for us. We get a lot of our shot material in then, and we've got a whole brilliant new team of digital journalists who are cutting it essentially for mobile. So it's the same stories we've always done. It's stories about refugees, it's stories about social justice, it's stories about holding people to account, it's Michael Crick doorstepping someone. But we've cut that. Tonight it's a big exclusive we've got on election expenses and allegations against the Tory party, the story we've done all year. But we cut it in a different way. We do it. We cut it for a mobile screen. We subtitle it, and we even now put music on it, which I found really sort of weird at the beginning because it's sort of news muzak, which I didn't like. But actually, it's being watched. Some of our last year, we had a dozen videos watched over 10 million times, but they were all the most watched video was one about a drone over Aleppo. And
so, I mean, I think the message coming from all of you is that you've got to be able to innovate in the news world today. Richard Sambrook from the Reuters Institute, Ben DePere from Channel 4 News, and John McAndrew from Sky News. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.